be an introductory session where we will get to know about what exactly is the DEVCOR certification. How are we going to do the DevNet Expert? What's the lab infrastructure you will be exposed to? And how do we move forward with it? So for the course outline, if we jump into that and understand what kind of course outline are we going to talk about in the core and in the expert. Firstly, speaking about the DevCore outline. The number one thing that we learn about. So it's always the very first topic is very common, where people might be familiar with network automation and but they might not be familiar with the core concept of it. So we speak about the introduction to SDN, which is software defined networking. If you don't understand how software defined networking works, it'll be hard for you to understand why exactly are you implementing network automation, because automation has lots of motives, from onboarding to provisioning to troubleshooting to maintaining and monitoring and upgrading. All of these motives are implemented by using various models of SDN. Some of them might be pure SDN, some of them might be non-SDN or hybrid SDN, right? And we should learn what exactly are the models and what kind of solutions are compatible and part of certain type of modules there. After we get familiar with SDN, then we jump into fundamentals of automation, or rather I'll say iOS automation. And programmability. This is something that you learn into DevNet Associate, but we also take a refresher over here, because people might be coming from a gap when they've learned this technology and then they went on a gap and then they're coming back at it. And since this is a long training that we have, you need to know about how the iOS automation programmability works. So this is also where we're going to work with Python scripts, and these scripts will end up pushing configuration onto some of the iOS devices, maybe one device at a time and multiple devices in time. And then we learn about multi-threading and all that stuff. Post that, we jump into model-driven programmability. And this is where we learn about a couple of protocols, including netconf and restconf. You might have heard the names about these protocols. Netconf and restconf allows you to implement automation on specific platforms, including iOS XE, iOS XR, and XOS. And what you need to be aware about is how data modeling generally works. That's where Yang data modeling comes into picture. So it is very crucial that you learn Yang data modeling by using native way of managing Yang data modeling or custom way of creating Yang data modeling, and then using Yang data models with tools like YangSuit, with tools like pyang. We're going to learn about that. And then we will be using the configurations that will be generated based on Yang data models to push and pull configurations onto devices like iOS XE, XR, and XOS over protocols, which are going to be netconf and restconf. So it's going to be a big segment that we will work on. After that, we jump into APIs. So using REST APIs and its advancements. So in your DevNet Associate, you might have learned about how REST API works. You might have got familiar with how HTTP queries are crafted using Postman or using Python, how you can fetch responses, how you can process the responses, parse the responses, and then use it in some other way. So Using REST API, we can interact with a lot of controllers, including SD-WAN vManager or SD Access, DNAC, or Catalyst Center, and then communicate with it over HTTP. Well, we're going to use a similar approach towards communicating with different platforms of Cisco, including WebEx, to create chatbots and lots of other things. And then we will also see some of the advanced topics in REST API, including pagination, including cache controlling, including rate limiting, lots of other things. And post that, we jump into something called infrastructure automation. And this is where we're going to learn about Git. We're going to learn about version control system, which is Git. Then we're going to learn about GitLab. We're going to learn about something like Ansible. We're going to learn about CI/CD pipelining. Right? All of these steps will be introduced to you when you jump into infrastructure automation. Then we talk about software deployment. Not deployment, I would say. Software and development methodologies. So we will speak about agile, lean, waterfall, the DevOps approaches, and lots of other things. And lastly, we talk about application security and deployment. So this is where we learn about containers, Kubernetes, virtual machines, and how using these you can deploy your applications and softwares. And also how you can secure them from publicly aware threats or vulnerabilities which are reported by an organization called OWASP. So that's gonna be a complete content which we will talk about in DevCore. And then there will also be certain labs which we'll be doing. Most of our content is 70% lab and about 30% theory. And you will also have accompanying study material which will be shared into the Telegram group. So make sure you join the Telegram group before we go forward. After this, after we complete this, then we jump into DevNet Expert outline. Now for DevNet Expert outline, so based on whatever you learn into DevNet Core or DevCore, the expert will allow you to learn advanced tools and tech stack, which is based on the fundamentals. For example, whatever you will be learning into iOS automation and programmability, the advancements of that will be seen into the expert. Whatever you learn in model-driven programmability, the advancements will be seen along with a couple of other tools over there, right? So things get advanced. Like any other domain in Cisco, when you learn CCNA, you're at the base of it. When you learn CCNP, you're going into the advancements, and when you're into CCIE, you go into more advanced way. When you learn associate, you need to know and understand how things work. So the practical approach is a little bit lesser. Then you jump into the professional level certification. That's where DevCore comes in. At DevCore, you try to implement things with a bit of a design approach. And when you jump into expert, then it's less and less about description and knowing things and more designing, implementing, and troubleshooting it. So in expert, you are responsible for designing a particular network automation solution for your organization so that people who carry associate and professional level courses can actually develop your idea and they can deploy it in the organization. But until unless they have a proper design methodology and build methodology and deployment methodology, they will not be able to act upon it. That's why you, being an expert, will be responsible for designing everything and then getting it in action. So whatever you learn in DevCo, that's going to complement you for the concepts that you're going to learn into the expert training. You cannot directly get started with the expert training unless you have completed your DevCo with a bit of practice. Otherwise, you'll face challenges understanding what exactly are we talking about when we discuss the DevNet Expert curriculum. So the DevNet Expert curriculum is going to expose you with a lot of tech stack. For example, we will be learning about iOS automation. What's happening to my pencil? iOS automation using modules like NetMiko, modules like NTC templates, etc. Scrappy and all that stuff. Async IO. All of these libraries are something that will be used for implementing network automation. Then we will jump into model-driven programmability again using netconf and restconf. But that'll be in an advanced way where templating and all that stuff will be used. Then we will learn about Jinja templates, right? We will learn about Jinja templating. After that, we learn about something called Python click framework. For developing CLI applications. Then we will talk about Cisco Network Services Orchestrator. You might have heard the name called NSO. We will learn about this NSO tool from scratch. Then we'll jump into um, Flask. Application development. After that, we learn about HashiCorp, Terraform. That's another tool we learn about. We're gonna learn about HashiCorp Vault, which is a credential management system. Post that, we are also gonna learn about Bash and shell scripting using curl, CURL, which is an alternative for sending your API calls or executing Python scripts. Post that, we will learn about Cisco's very famous testing tool called PyAts. So PyAts testing framework. After that, we learn about CI/CD pipeline troubleshootings. Then we're going to learn about model-driven telemetry. This is a separate thing than model-driven programmability. In model-driven telemetry, you learn about how to pull configuration data from your device and provide that pulled data to third-party tools like Grafana or like Prometheus and so on. After that, we're going to learn about Docker and Kubernetes. And this is gonna be the tech stack you will learn into your DevNet Expert training. But all of this can be grabbed by you if you very well understand the concepts of DevCore. If you fail to be good enough with DevCore, then this will be extremely difficult for you to understand why you're doing it. Because by using these tools or by getting familiar with these tools, you will learn how to design a network automation solution. But apart from this designing, you should also know the implementational factors of it. If you don't know how to implement that, what kind of protocol can be used in the underlay so that the outcome that one of your tool generates can be executed. For example, you know how to work with PyAts, but you don't know how the PyAts is going to communicate and get the job done. That's going to be difficult. Similarly, Python Click or Flask or Django, or rather Jinja 2 templating or iOS XE automation, instead of just using NetMiko, which you might have used in DevNet Associate, we're also gonna use other things like Scraply and Async IO, which allows multi-threading capability for your infrastructure. All of this will be covered into the expert training. Some of the glimpses you will start seeing in the DevNet core training, and let's see how that goes up. So that's the course outline for it. And if I speak about the lab infrastructure that everyone will have an access of, so you will be able to access the labs which are hosted in PyNet Labs data center, and you can access them from anywhere in the world, where you will be provided with a jump host. Now this jump host is going to be a Windows 10 machine, plus it has WSL installed. WSL stands for Linux or Windows Subsystem Linux. So you have a little bit of Linux operating system inside your Windows machine. And then that jump host is going to be exposed out to the internet. And then from anywhere in the world, you as user can sit anywhere and can do RDP to the jump host. Then from jump host, you will be able to access another machine, which is going to be EVNG network simulator. And inside the EVNG network simulator, you will have your network infrastructure topology. So you have routers and switches and firewalls, everything on there. So your development will be done onto the jump host, and the execution will be done onto the network infra that you have inside your EVNG. Be it one device, two device, three devices, we will have numerous instances of that. And that will allow you to make sort of configuration onto you. Make sense? So this is gonna be an outline of how the training is gonna be conducted. We are going to meet every weekend